dears, and welcome to my show. I'm your friendly neighborhood librarian, reading the sneakers and praising the masterpieces since 2012, which is almost over. You know what that means! The last episode of the season! And what better way to send season 1 off than a look at Charles Dickens. And what are we going to look at today? Could it be his most famous novel, Oliver Twist, about an impoverished orphan? That could be relevant considering Les Miserables, the movie, just came out, and the whole poster for that movie is an impoverished orphan. But no, I don't think I'll look at that one yet. Well, certainly then we're going to review his second most famous novel, Great Expectations, right? Well, if you thought so, then your expectations were too great. Oh, come on, you knew that was a good joke. You guys just don't appreciate librarian humor. What's that? There was another story that Charles Dickens wrote? A short story? Well, that sounds like it could be timely and relevant. A Christmas Carol? But it's December 30th. Oh well, never too early to get into the Christmas spirit. Or too late. Only 360 days until Christmas, right? Let's do this. The story goes like this. There's a grump named Ebenezer Scrooge, the original Grinch, in that he hates Christmas. He's cruel to his employee Bob Cratchit, and greets any Christmas cheer with a "Bah! Humbug!" On Christmas Eve, he's visited by the ghost of his dead partner Marley, who is bound by chains. He warns Ebenezer that he will suffer the same fate. Fortunately, Marley has arranged for 3 spirits to meet Ebenezer and put him on the path of changing his fate.
If you had the chance to change your fate, would you?
That's where our story begins. A Christmas Carol. I've found that this is one of those stories that nearly everyone has heard of, but not a lot of people have actually read the source material. Case in point, I've known the story for about as long as I can remember, but it wasn't until this year that I read the original Dickens work itself. When I think of short stories, I don't think of stories quite this length. Dickens is very wordy and descriptive. He has a way with words, but I was reading it aloud and sometimes the sentences would go on for so long that I had trouble knowing when to take a breath. I don't think I need to go over every element of the story because chances are you know the basics. So I'll go over some parts of it that I wasn't familiar with, or that surprised me, and let you know how it all held up. So the story begins with the funeral of Ebenezer's partner, Jacob Marley. That I already knew, but what I didn't know was that Charles Dickens has a sense of humor about even the darkest parts of his tale. The narrator starts rambling about whether a doornail is really dead, and whether the simile makes sense upon scrutiny. And I'm just thinking, a man is dead, and that's what you're supposed to be describing, and yet you're going on and on about a doornail! The self-aware snark of the narrator is very modern sounding and reminds me a bit of Lemony Snicket, if you've ever had the pleasure of reading a series of unfortunate events, not watching it, because that movie was a disaster, kind of like this one. Sorry, those are rants for another day. The characterization of Scrooge was rather interestingly paced. The story is divided into 5 chapters. The first is the introduction to Scrooge, the next 3 are the 3 ghosts, and the last is the conclusion to Scrooge's journey. We know, of course, that Scrooge is a big meanie in the first chapter, and by the 5th chapter has gotten into the Christmas spirit. So, as you'd imagine, the development has to be kinda quick. In the first chapter, Scrooge has this line.
Out upon Merry Christmas! What's Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills without money? A time for finding yourself a year older but not an hour richer? A time for balancing your books and having every item in them through a round dozen of months presented dead against you. If I could work my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart. He should.
And the strange thing is, I kind of agree with him. Not about the whole everyone who says Merry Christmas should die thing. That's kind of extreme, I think. But it is a fact that Christmas time is when your pockets get sucked dry. I mean, here it is 5 days after Christmas and I'm broke enough to desperately need this ad revenue, so thank you for clicking on this video! What I'm saying is, Scrooge has a fair point, but his actions are cranked up to 11. I understand that this is a short story and there's a limited amount of time for characterization, but this just seems kind of simplistic and melodramatic. Reading a short story's characterization after having been used to reading about characterization that spans chapters and chapters is sort of like the transition from watching movie acting to watching stage acting. While both techniques are equally valid and necessary for their mediums, despite this over-grumpification, which is now a word, because I said so, Scrooge really isn't that unpleasant of a character once you get to know him. I felt for him a lot during his visits from the ghosts, more so than in any movie that I've seen of the story. So now it's time to talk about the three ghosts. The Ghost of Christmas Past, Ghost of Christmas Present,
Come in and know me better, man.
and the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. Cameraman, what are you looking at? Whatever. The three ghosts are very different in different adaptations, and I wasn't sure what to expect from the original. Dickens is very descriptive of the ghosts, and I enjoyed the technical aspects of what the ghosts looked like, how they acted, and what laws of physics they could break. Because yeah, they were super-powered ghosts, with personalities and quirks. I was very impressed with how thoroughly Dickens managed to personalize the spirits in one chapter. And isn't that how it seems to go? The less screen time a character gets, the better characterized they seem to be. I guess because they get extra effort put into them. The Ghost of Christmas Past is a gentle, fluctuating fellow with a candle flame on his head. He's able to make Scrooge fly. He has pixie dust or something.
Don't forget the big interest.
Ah! A ghost!
Continue.
Okay, but why are you here in my review? I mean, I have plenty of Christmas cheer. I can prove it. I mean, I know this review is a little late, but, here, have a candy cane.
This pleases me. Go on.
Okay, well, the Ghost of Christmas Past is actually my least favorite ghost. No offense.
Fine. I will just throw you out the window so you can fly then.
That won't be necessary. Miss Ghost, sir. Sorry, I can't really tell if you're, yeah. But seriously, the Ghost of Christmas Past just seems to have the least amount of personality. He, she, it does not reveal very much to Scrooge and is a little mean-spirited near the end when showing Scrooge painful memories. Like rubbing salt in a wound, like kicking a puppy when it's down. I know the whole point is to get Scrooge to stop being crabby, but is reminding him of his painful breakup really supposed to help? It kind of seems vindictive and not in the holiday spirit. I know that's the point, and the spirit of the past is only showing Scrooge Christmas past, but it came across a little hypocritical. And it doesn't help that this spirit is the least interesting. So let's just say I was pretty pleased when Scrooge extinguished the spirit with the spirit's cap. And speaking of that... Why isn't it working? Away, foul spirit? Can you just leave so I can finish my review?
Okay.
Well, that wasn't very mystical. Okay, on to the second ghost. Doesn't look like I'm going to be visited by it. Good. So the second ghost is the ghost of Christmas present, and the personality of this one is huge. I mean, unlike the first ghost, this ghost seems to have a stake in worldly matters because he goes around spreading Christmas cheer, and not only that, but he gives commentary on what he shows Scrooge. He is the one who is most effective at being a teacher to Scrooge, a mentor, as you will. I really have no complaints with the spirit himself, but there was a very interesting development with him. You see, apparently, he keeps kids in his robe and just whips them out on occasion.
What, like we've never done this before? Continue.
Yeah, like that. It's freaky, and I think it's sort of preachy because the kids are named Ignorance and Want, and they're ugly, so okay. That metaphor was sort of lost on me, but at the end of the chapter, the ghost of Christmas present, well, dies, because I guess ghosts can die. So are you gonna die now? Sure. Clean up at aisle 4. So no one came to clean up my dead ghost, and I've decided to relocate. And this way, the third ghost won't know where to find me. So... are you the ghost of Christmas yet to come? Are you deaf? I guess I'll just continue, then. Well, the ghost of Christmas yet to come is actually my favorite ghost. Why? Because he never says a word, you never see his face, you never see any expression, and yet Charles Dickens managed to capture a personality. He's dark and mysterious and just all around cool. The future segment was my favorite part to read just because of that. Because by then, Scrooge has become very likable and used to the spirits, and he's already undergone a transformation. He respects the spirit and it's just curious, kind of like a child. And since pretty much everyone already knows the punchline of the future segment, it creates a nice sense of dramatic irony, in that Scrooge is looking around wondering where his future self is and feeling sorry for the man who died, and all the while we, and the ghost of Christmas future, I mean yet to come, seriously, that's a mouthful, know exactly what's going on and can't help but feel a little pity for this changed Scrooge that is looking at everything with this childlike wonder. The emotion was really well done, and this chapter is definitely the highlight of the story. Hey, isn't it funny that I called your part the highlight of the story? When you're all shrouded in darkness. You don't have much of a sense of humor, do you? Yeah, I know, I've got a lot of books to review, but, everyone needs a breather sometime, right? Well, I guess maybe you don't. Okay, I know, I'll get on it. Sheesh. Oh, wow, you sure are strong, aren't you? Oh well. And then there's the ending of the story, which I've always considered heartwarming and sweet. Ebenezer has found the joy of Christmas and the generosity and fellowship that comes with it. Or so you think! Turns out I got a very different vibe from the last chapter of the Christmas Carol. It seems like the spirits scared the Christmas cheer into him. Like he's so desperate not to die and so traumatized by what he's seen that he's a little frenetic. I'm not left knowing if Scrooge became a better person overall or just a better person during Christmas time. I don't know, it just came across like he was desperately trying to prove to the spirits that he'd changed so that he could prolong his life. But maybe I'm just being a little bit too cynical. It's still nice and all that he bought a turkey for the poor Cratchits and shared Christmas with his nephew and gave to charity. And apparently, because of Scrooge's change, little tiny Tim Cratchit doesn't die. He would have died, according to the ghost of Christmas yet to come, but because Scrooge changed, the future changed. Happy ending, and I was glad to see Scrooge get one, but it ultimately rang a little hollow. I think the story was a little too big to encompass in a short story format, but there's no one better to try the ambitious than the talented Charles Dickens. As for adaptations, I haven't seen them all. But you'll have to forgive me. There are more than 20 movie adaptations, more than 30 plays, 2 operas, 2 graphic novels, and a slew of TV specials besides. You can't go outside and throw a rock without hitting an adaptation of The Christmas Carol.
Hey!
Sorry. They range from very faithful to not faithful at all.
Stop haunting me. Stop being so hauntable.
They've all got their own little spins and takes on the story. The story is well enough intentioned and has a good message behind it, so chances are you can find one of them to be a Christmas classic for your family. And hey, you've got 360 more days to watch them and decide for yourself. My favorite is probably The Muppets Christmas Carol because, come on, it's the Muppets! It's fairly faithful to the story, and the music is enjoyable and suitable to the holiday theme. I very much enjoyed the Scrooge, and I think the ghosts were visually interesting. I'd give it a 4 out of 5, if only because a few of the musical numbers missed the mark a little. But only a little. My least favorite, I guess, is Scrooged. Scrooged is a modernized version of the tale, and I just don't think that this particular story translates well. It's maybe not as bad an example as some, but even disregarding it as an adaptation, I don't think it's a very good movie. It's kind of cheesy. I mean, yes, the original story is cheesy, but I think it's a cheese well deserved because it makes us care about Scrooge. And that is ironically what Scrooge lacks the most, a fine Ebenezer characterization. So, 2 stars, and I think that's a little generous. Would I recommend A Christmas Carol? Well, it's not that I wouldn't recommend it, it's just that I don't really think this particular Dickens work is necessary to read. You know the story, you probably have a version you enjoy. There's charm to the writing style, and there are scenes I wasn't familiar with that I'm glad I got to read. In particular, I loved the chilling 4th chapter. But it is wordy and grandiose, and it does have flaws, and if you're not dying to read it, it may not be for you. Technically, it was excellent, and I can't award it any less than my favorite adaptation of it, so 4 stars out of 5. And that concludes this season of Friendly Neighborhood Librarian. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again very, very soon. Well, till next time, I'm your Friendly Neighborhood Librarian, signing out.
I know it's mad, but if I go to hell, will you come with me or just leave? I know it's mad, but if the world were ending, would you kiss me or just leave me? Just leave me. Clouds are marching along, singing a song, just like they do. If the clouds were singing a song.